The notion that a radical is one who hates his country is naive and usually, and Mencken specifies, usually idiotic. He is more likely one who likes his country more than the rest of us and is thus more disturbed than the rest of us when he sees it debauched. He is not a bad citizen turning to crime. He is a good citizen driven to despair. A common enough sentiment. We are living in an era where we have the highest inflation in 40 years. Crime that hasn't been seen since the 1970s, a border out of control, and an addled cadaver in the Oval Office with an approval rating floating between 30 and 41%. So it was quite natural for the average person to expected to have seen this past Tuesday. But this is not what materialized. There's a number of things to take from this, and we'll be going over all of them today. Some people thought that the red wave would manifest as further support for this man. The numbers, sad to say, do not reflect that. I do not, however, concede that this man is responsible for the red wave being a red ripple. There's always more nuance than that. And Tuesday was not without its bright spots. The gentleman on the left, Governor Kemp, and we can say that, Governor Kemp of Georgia, trounced Stacey Abrams to the right. Stacey Abrams conceded this election, unlike the last one, which she will no doubt continue to contest, but that's a subject for another time. But the really bright spot of the evening was this man. In spite of everything that they had predicted, that the Hispanic vote would show backlash for his political grandstanding, sending immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, and that his rejection of COVID protocols would lead to his downfall. Oh, the Twitter sphere was alive with dire predictions for this man. But he pulled off records in voting across all demographics. He was the clear winner on Tuesday, and that will reflect going forward. But outside of DeSantis, there were a lot more disappointments than there were victories. This addled, stammering, stuttering, salivating stroke victim carried the state of Pennsylvania. Now, that in itself is not so unusual because Pennsylvania has a habit of carrying elections for stammering, stuttering, salivating stroke victims. But this one was unusual in the sense that those same ballots, the landslide that came down, defying all polls and everything that went before, also managed to elect in that same state of Pennsylvania, on that same ballot, a man who had been dead for several months. Now, dead people voting Democratic isn't anything unusual. But live people electing dead Democrats, we're in new territory there. But the one that really bears consideration is this one. That is Katie Hobbs on the left and the lovely Miss Kari Lake on the right. Every indicator had Kari Lake ahead going into the election. Only two problems with that. One, Katie Hobbs gave no debate to Kari Lake to further embarrass herself. But the biggest issue was that in the state of Arizona, Katie Hobbs, as Secretary of State, was responsible for the ballot count, responsible for the voting machines. And now it's looking like this one may be headed to court. And of course, the media doing what they're intended to do as a propaganda ministry, just painting Miss Lake as another election denier in another election, let alone that Katie Hobbs was videoed with a timestamp inside the ballot rooms in Maricopa County with voting machines that malfunctioned for the first 2 hours of the election only in conservative districts. What a coincidence. The fact that she was in those ballot rooms is in itself a felony, which is why you won't hear a goddamn thing about it from the mainstream media. Now, a lot of people think that we are going to make our cause worse by continuing to contest these things. After all, the propaganda ministry has been quite successful in painting us as extremists and election deniers. But before you decide to shut up in the interest of diplomacy, I will remind you of the words of Jordan Peterson. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson had a word on that. Silence when you have something to say is a lie, and tyranny feeds on lies. Of course, it's easier in the moment to stay silent and avoid conflict, but in the long term, that's deadly. If we stay silent and avoid conflict in the short term, I say without a shred of hyperbole that there will be no long term. Or if there is indeed a long term, it will be a scenario that we would rather pray to avoid, but will not run or shrink from should it arise. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not new employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat dose of throbbing, turgid, thorny, oozing, and freshly relocated truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Everybody, man, let's see where the energy is. I think we're going to have some guys bounce over from the other one. I had a false start. We'll get into that in a minute. But right now, everybody in for the drum roll. I'm going to bring the volume up on that a little bit. I'm still getting used to the acoustics in this new room. You will note that there is a new locale, a new background, all kinds of good stuff, and I will catch you up on all the details of that as we progress. Right now, we're going to do a quick little roll call, see who we got on board. All right, original Sinner Sister herself, Emmy. I'm dying to know how that meeting with that author went today, man. Emmy, a history nerd after my own heart and other parts of my anatomy from time to time. Brother Joel. Brother Joel on board, man. Always good to see that. Bill Wade, excellent to have you on board, my friend. Again, I'm adjusting the voice level. I'm adjusting the music level. I'm trying to get used to this whole thing. I'm in a new locale, and the last thing I need right now is to get kicked out of the place that I'm going to be staying for the next couple of months. But it should be entertaining. What do we got? Yes, new digs. You got it. New digs, new location, new gig, as well as new digs. But I'm going to get into all that. Brother James Pearson, LEO extraordinaire, the man they call the Chief. Always good to have you on board, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we have Carrie, and wherever Carrie goes, Roman is no doubt to follow. Here we are. Yeah, man, sorry, guys. I know a lot of you were over on that other feed. There were some technical issues on that first one that I tried to start up, so I had to redo it and start over here. I was hoping everybody was going to bounce. It looks like we caught everybody. Brother G-Dub, I can't even begin to tell you how Sarah Palin fucked us in Alaska. If she had stayed out of the race, the right would have won by 9,000 votes, but no, she divided the vote down the middle. Brother, we're going to get into all that, and if I don't, for whatever reason, cover Palin, make sure to remind me, G-Dub, because that is one that I did not have in my bullet points. And definitely wanted to cover, definitely wanted to get into. There's a lot of divided votes. There's a lot of discrepancies, shall we say, but we're going to get into all of that. If it seems like I'm parsing my words, what's up, David? Good to have you on board. Seems like I'm parsing my words a little bit. It's because I'm parsing my words a little bit. I'm not holding back, and I will express exactly what I mean and exactly what I do not mean. I am not doing this in the interest of diplomacy. I'm not even really doing it in the interest of keeping these videos viable for several of the platforms that I'm on until we make the Yes, brother Ryan. I'm glad to have you on board. And yes, we did see the corruption down in Houston. How that medical tyrant, that fucking, oh my god, don't even get me started. We're gonna cover all of that stuff. Anything that I miss, I want you guys to remind me. Mr. Wright, what's up, brother? What's up? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm glad we got all the usual suspects on board. Glad we got everybody on board early. Um, Man, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Tuesday was not what we expected it to be, but we don't do black pills around here, and there are a lot of people walking around black pill. There are a lot of people wanting to throw their hands up and give up in the wake of this thing. If that is you, turn me off now. Turn me off now. Because A, you're not going to want what I have to tell you in the interest of offering any positive affirmation. And second of all, we don't need your fucking energy, man. We don't. Because if you're walking away black pilled right now, man, you don't have the stones of the spine for the fight that this could get to. So better we lose you now, motherfucker. The value of my history 446 significantly increased. I got an invite to join the 8th Air Force Historical and 446 Bombing Group Association. Emmy, that is fan-fucking-tastic. For you guys that don't know, man, Emmy is pretty fucking amazing. And her hubs is amazing as well. They crafted one of the finest gifts that I've ever been given in my life. And of course, Emmy and I go way back, way back. Not quite as far as me and Roman though do. But we're gonna give. Here we go. Create an account, DM me. Oh yeah. You guys communicate all that stuff, please. Everyone on the woke chart side is rooting for Twitter to fail now. Of course they are. And we're even going to get into some of that stuff. But again, we're going to keep it signal, man. We're going to keep it signal because there's an awful lot of fucking noise out there right now, and that is not doing anyone any good going forward. So, what do you say? I fade this bumper music out. We just go ahead and get the jump off into this thing, man. We'll get everything started. Glad you guys made it out on a Sunday. We got a lot of great stuff going on. We can reflect on what happened Tuesday, and we can reflect on what it means. I think that's going to be subject to interpretation going forward, but we'll see about that. In any case, let me get the sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick. Yes, I'm in some new digs, and I will be getting into all that. Let's get the sponsor shout outs and the rabbit hole down because I'm really looking forward to getting into this rabbit hole today. But sponsor shout outs, first of all, Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers at Nordic Smoke Barbecue. They are the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Fucking done. They will be smoking my holiday turkeys again this year, a tradition that we have kept alive every single year. Since I arrived here in the Inland Northwest, and I will hopefully be back home to partake in that turkey. But one year we actually had to ship it to Texas. Those guys accommodated me. They do a great job on that. If you guys are in the area, go ahead and get with them, man, because they're going to run out of spaces really quick. They handle catering. Dude, I am North Carolina by way of Texas. All right. I'm not easily impressed with fucking barbecue. These guys are the real fucking deal. And I love them, and they're good men as well. Casey and Dusty both. So my Viking brothers over at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, and of course, Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Roxy and Allie and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Roman has shifted gears. Roman has shifted gears, and I can't do that without like exposing his identity. Let's just say that he's in another occupation. He is in the same occupation, but with a different employer. And my understanding is he has headed out to California, and we should all take a moment of silence for that, for Roman having to be in California. I'm very sorry about that. Look at that, man. John Tim showing up. Brother, hey, it's great to see you, man. Me and JT, the last of the Grady Park hooligans, man. Houston Stick Fighting Association alumni. There's a special kind of love you have with brothers that you beat the shit out of each other with sticks and remain friends. But we've been on that Filipino martial arts tip together for a long time. That long, lanky motherfucker had my hands plenty full on several gatherings, man. Just long, lean muscle, really fucking quick, and I'm built like a fucking fire plug. There were some great matches, man. Great fucking matches back in the day. JT, I miss it. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Brother David. I have not forgotten to email you, sir. Put in 85 hours this week. Busy as hell. Hey, David, you get what we call the real world pass. It's okay. And if you hang out for a minute, I promise I'm going to squeeze in and call somebody fucking Sparky before this thing is over with, because I know that's the main reason you show up for the program. That's like your favorite disparaging word now. Straight up tank. Yeah, man. Yeah, but it was like a tank fighting a javelin missile. And anyway, we could revisit the old days, and we will. JT, it's good to have you on board. All right, let me jump on into the first segment. It's the one that everybody digs. It's the one that everybody secretly waits for. Ryan's rabbit hole, boys and girls. That's right. Every single week we get a little bit off the beaten path, and we go down a rabbit hole. Brother Ryan and I are both repositories of useless information, or information that a lot of people find useless, but we're pretty happy with it. Every week we go down one of these rabbit holes. We kind of take you outside of your box, outside your echo chamber, just kind of send you down, maybe try to expand your worldview a little bit, drop some stuff on you of which you may or may not have been aware. You see how I didn't end the sentence with a preposition? Because I'm a grammar Nazi. That when we get to you'll see where I'm going with that. Anyway, some days we go philosophical, some days we go historical, some days we go conspiratorial, some days we go esoteric. This week we are going to be going straight historical. And Ryan, by the way, I did want to acknowledge, since we are talking about bomber groups, and we are talking about combat aircraft, and we are talking about history. Let me see. Where was the comment? A rest in peace to the pilots. Rest in peace to the crew of Texas Raider B-17. The Wings Over Texas Air Show in Dallas. A B-17 collided with, I want to say, a King Cobra fighter. I could be wrong about that. But they were two vintage World War II aircraft, part of the air show, and there was a mid-air collision, and a number of people were killed, and that was a tragic event. So definitely RIP to the crews. It's amazing. People devote their lives, speaking of like obscure pursuits, people devote their life to this kind of stuff, and it's for the preservation of history, right? Because there's a lot that we have to learn from history. A lot of pilots would be like, why do you waste so much time and effort and energy and risk in air shows, flying World War II aircraft that are difficult to maintain and have to have parts fabricated for them, and the littlest thing goes wrong and you're putting your life at risk and things like that? Dude, I've got nothing but respect for these motherfuckers for keeping it alive, man. It's something. It's really, really something to devote your life to a pursuit like that, a preservation of a very specific box in the historical timeline, and to devote your entire life to the pursuit of that, of taking it, not just writing it down in a book, but actually making it tangible, taking these historical machines, which at the time were just mind-boggling, earth-shattering technological advances. You'll see where I'm going with this when we get to the rabbit hole. That they devote their whole life to making this alive and tangible, that you can actually relive in some small way that moment where that bird that you're seeing above you was the height of aircraft technology, right? And they keep that memory alive. And in the sense of, was I correct in that? Yes. The pilot of the King Cobra was the executive director of the movie, of the show Tora Tora Tora. Wow. See, this is the great thing about having a lot of history nerds in my circle, and being somewhat of a history nerd myself. I tend to gravitate towards the Cold War, but We already knew that. Anyway, World War II is another subject of interest. And this week, the rabbit hole is the Glock, the Glock, the Glock, the Glock. What? Oh no, not this one. The Bell, the German Bell. DIE, Glock, like the Austrian Glock, but with an E on the end. The Glock. I want you guys to really, really go down this rabbit hole. And beyond just the bell itself. One thing, what was it Bill Burr said about Adolf Hitler, that he was the Michael Jordan of evil? That just like Michael Jordan, when he came along for basketball, there is an era before and an era after, and everything in basketball after Michael Jordan will be defined by Michael Jordan's performance. The premise was that everything in evil, everything inside the realm of evil and historical darkness, there is a pre-Hitler era, and there is how evil will be viewed and reflected on after Hitler. But there was a lot more to that Austrian with the funny mustache. Not so much as, in a lot of sense, and I believe you can make a case for this, Hitler was a figurehead in the same way that Biden was a figurehead. Let's not take anything away from Funny Mustache Boy. He was a decorated war hero from World War I. He was a devout German nationalist, and his passion for protecting the interests of the German people was without peer. Having said that, the people that he had surrounded himself with kept projects going, some of which he may or may not have been aware of. And the Bell, the Glock, was one of those projects. Now, a lot of people speculate. A lot of people say that there's a big part of that history that is hidden. And suffices to say, and Aaron, if you're watching, this is going to be one of those rare moments where you're going to see me in open candor, specifying that some of those really, really obscure hidden history, hidden technology things may have some substance to it. It was the later days of the war. Now we know that in the lead up to the war, many of the people with whom Hitler was surrounded, members of the SS, Heinrich Himmler and that crowd in particular, they were deeply obsessed with the occult. They sent expeditions all over the world to capture and return to the fatherland historical relics. The spear of Longinus, the spear that pierced the side of Christ, was one of the things they went after. But beyond that, they were always pushing the envelope of technology. There is speculation that the Nazis may have had contact with alien races, alien life forms. Again, while I don't gravitate necessarily to any one theory or the other, it's one of those things that can't be ruled out. And a lot of this technology may have been back engineered or given to them directly. Your speculation is as good as mine. But the Bell itself was an experimental aircraft slash time machine, or at least an attempt at one. How successful it was really depends on the source that you look into. But when you consider that Werner von Braun, SS, war criminal, brought to the United States under Project Paperclip at the end of World War II, was the man who essentially got us to the moon, if you in fact believe that we went to the moon. But at the very least, he was the head of NASA and the Saturn V rocket program and NASA's Apollo program. He was also heavily involved in the Peenemünde Rocket Research Center, from which emanated the V1 and the V2 Vengeance weapons that rained terror over London. But given their predilection for the occult, and given their predilection for super advanced technologies like time travel, like bending the fabric of time and space, it stands to reason that they would have at least attempted such a thing. Now you're thinking to yourself, okay, man, this is totally ridiculous. And I can see where you can make a case for that as well. But let's keep in mind, have you taken a good look at the B-2 stealth bomber or any of the Lockheed stealth aircraft? Flying wings, essentially flying wings. flying wings that a number of UFO conspiracy theorists here in the States think was back engineered from alien technology. You don't have to go that far because flying wing technology was being pioneered by the Nazis at the end of World War II. They were in desperation mode. They were throwing everything at it to save the fatherland from the wrath that they were getting on both sides from the Allies and from the Bolsheviks. So they were throwing anything at everything. And when you get into research of what actually was done with the Glock, and you can find plenty of stuff on the History Channel, you can find plenty of stuff on the internet. Some will be straight up David Icke nonsense, and some will leave you sitting there thinking, yes, you can definitely make a case for this. But these wonder weapons, like the Bell, essentially levitation, anti-gravity technology, bending the fabric of time and space technology. This is what they were going for. Were they successful? Well, we'll probably never know, will we? But one can say that these experiments were at least enough to pique the interest of the rocketry and science fields after World War II. Again, this is a rabbit hole that will lead you down a whole lot of other rabbit holes. Take a look at the design of the bell. It looks like a fucking bell with some swastikas on it. Some of you may use those for Christmas decorations. I can't speak to that. But the same type of aircraft was reported by people in 1964, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, an incident where an aircraft, an alien spacecraft of some sort, was reported to have crashed and been spirited away by government authorities in the middle of the night, Roswell style. The odd thing is, all of the witnesses described a bell-shaped object at the crash site. And when you look at the eyewitness sketches and things like that, it's almost a carbon copy blueprint of the Glock, the Bell. Again, this is one of those things. This rabbit hole will lead you down other rabbit holes, some other rabbit holes to go down from the Bell. Nazi interest in the occult, Nazi interest in super advanced technology, Nazi interest in space travel and time travel. Okay. All of that stems from this rabbit hole. Operation Paperclip stems from this rabbit hole. All of the scientists that were involved, the only ones that got hung at Nuremberg were ones that had nothing to offer to the Allies. See also Unit 731, but we've already touched on that in previous rabbit holes. But they were brought to the United States and relieved of any war crimes charges in exchange for their research. So to say that these people were just crackpots working on stuff that had no chance of working is demonstrably false. Because these people were brought to the United States, they at least had enough on the ball that it piqued the interest of the United States government and helped us win the space race. A rabbit hole of its own. We can discuss that another time. We touched on it a bit last week. The Glock, the Bell, Nazi time travel and space travel research, Operation Paperclip, Nazi scientists being put to work for NASA. This is a huge fucking rabbit hole that goes off in 100 different directions, and I urge you to look at all of them because it's some fascinating stuff. There are aha moments galore. You're going to be looking at stuff going, wow, I never put that two and two together. Right, exactly. Because why? The noise. We're trying to give you some signal here. Take that signal and run with it. The Glock, the Bell, Nazi space travel, Nazi time travel, Nazi interest in the occult, Werner von Braun and his work with NASA, SS war criminals, Operation Paperclip, all of this stuff. And it all stems from this one item. So go down that rabbit hole, take a good look. Yep, there you go. See, I didn't even look at the comments, the whole thing. I had the bullet point up. But great minds think alike. Ironically, this time machine and the American, the Philadelphia experiment. See, another one. Like all of these things stemming from this one. So you start looking at Nazis doing time travel research, Nazis being put to work in the United States for military and aerospace and science. stands to reason that we might have tried to do some of that same type of experiment and the Philadelphia Naval Yard, and a ship just kind of vanished and reappeared in Norfolk, Virginia. But there's another rabbit hole in and of itself, the Philadelphia experiment. All of it stems off of this. You can get distracted and go down some really silly, obscure, complete bullshit, David Icke type stuff. But when it comes to conspiracy, time traveler connected, there's a reason. I'll explain sometime. G-Dub, I'd love to have that conversation with you over coffee. But there's a reason that I sort of part ways with the conspiracy crowd, because it's crawling fucking nut jobs. It's crawling fucking nut jobs that distract with just ridiculous nonsense from legit, verifiable things that have legs, right? If you take a look at the declassified records for the Philadelphia experiment and its similarity with the intended goals of Die Glocke in Germany, this is something you can build a case for. When you look at the fact that the Nazis were the first to field jet aircraft, that they were light years ahead in rocketry technology, so much so that they were all the top rocketry dogs that were brought to the States afterwards to work for us. We won the space race because our Nazis were better than their Nazis, and the Russians seized a whole lot of Nazi scientists themselves. It was a good time. If you were a Nazi, it was a good time to be a fucking scientist. If you were a scientist, it was a good time to be a fucking Nazi. Interesting shit, man. History, when the deeper you get into it and the more obscure knowledge that you have about history and the way that power structures have shaped up, and that money is protected money and power is protected power, and the fact that there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, all of this is nuance, all of this is relative. Here's another one for you. Keep in mind, next time you're sipping a Fanta beverage, that is the soft drink of Nazis. I'll let you go down that road. Any of you guys whose occupation requires tailored suits, Hugo Boss. Guess who did the design for the Third Reich's uniforms? Which is why they look so fucking badass. Can we just say that? Can we just say that? Hitler may have been the Michael Jordan of evil, but God, man, those uniforms were fucking rocking. A couple of you guys have asked about this little thing. Yes, I have an owie. This was a severe owie earlier in the week. Let's just say that I am a firm believer in the edge of that 5.11 tactical tomahawk that I showed you a couple of weeks ago. There was, shall we say, an accident during deployment, and basically shaved the entire fingerprint pad from here to like the first joint, and just flapped it and laid it the fuck open. So I'm still healing from that. Got to test your gear sometimes accidentally. Anyway, man, thanks again to Brother Ryan for yet another fucking rabbit hole that is going to lead to other rabbit holes. And I hope you guys take this and take a good look at some of the more obscure parts of history to which you may not have been previously exposed. And even if you do know a little something about a little something, go down the subsequent rabbit holes. Take a look. It's fascinating shit, man. It's really, really fascinating shit. Yeah, JT, I knew you'd like hearing about that tomahawk, man. I knew you'd like hearing about that fucking tomahawk. That was one of our favorite playthings back in the day when we're crossing sticks and putting on the hockey mat, or the hockey mask. Well, yeah, that's a different film. Putting on the fencing mask and the hockey gloves and just going at it, man. Many a good time, many a good time with that. So anyway, guys, take it, go down that rabbit hole and see what it has to offer you, man. It's gonna be some fascinating stuff. Real quick, one thing that I did not get a chance to put in the header to the program as one of the bullet points was free speech in transition. My boy, he came out He came out this week, and again, they're doing everything in their power to demonize Musk. And I'll get more into that later when we discuss how the Democrats are going to be doubling down in the wake of what happened this week. But he's taken over Twitter, and he tweeted earlier in the week that a separation of powers or an equal balance in powers tends to restrict the more egregious overreaches of government, and said that it would be best if there were a Republican Congress as long as we have a Democratic president, and vice versa. This immediately got construed into he took over Twitter to make it a thumping ground for the radical right, which of course these same people had no fucking problem with when it was a sounding board for the intellectual left. He booted Kathy Griffin. Now, when I say Kathy Griffin, I think a lot of you, when you hear that, your first reaction is who? Right. D-list fucking celebrity cunt that held up the mock severed head of Donald Trump and promptly lost her career for it, because guess what? People don't dig that shit. Tried to do false equivalencies between a few hillbillies in fucking Tennessee burning Obama in effigy. That's a weekend in rural Tennessee. Someone with a huge platform, a well-known celebrity, though has been D-list celebrity entertainer, holding up the severed head of a fucking president, and then you try to draw a moral equivalency between the two. Are both ridiculous? Yes. But let me go one further. Both are also protected speech. Let me say that again louder for the people in the back. Both are also protected speech. It's important to maintain ideological consistency on these things. So when somebody on Twitter posts this, a little Photoshop deal that they put together as a fucking as a mockery of what Kathy Griffin did. What was Kathy Griffin's defense? It was a joke. It was just a joke. I don't deserve to lose my career over a joke. But as soon as whoever it was posted this, the guy that put this together on fucking Photoshop, they were calling for his head. Oddly enough, they were calling for his head on a fucking platter. This is not the way, people. This is not the way. I did not call for Kathy Griffin's head when she did that. Was it abhorrent? Yes. Was it a joke? Hardly. There was serious malicious intent behind that. But guess what? It wasn't incitement. She wasn't holding up that mock severed head and saying it would be really cool if this person did this to the real person to do. That would be incitement. It falls under a totally separate. And look, man, I'm going to say this across the board. You have to be able to distinguish between the intent, right, and the actions of the people that hear the rhetoric. Case in point, AOC and all of her rhetoric against, kids in cages and all that other fucking nonsense that we got to put up with for 4 years. She is not responsible for that lunatic in fucking, what was it, Tacoma, that firebombed the ICE facility up there. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, not just an ICE plant. I mean, like Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A leftist radical bombed the fuck out of an ICE center in Tacoma, Washington. That was not AOC's fault. When the BLM riots, and let's call them what they are, when the George Floyd riots were going on and the Antifa maggot mob and the BLM maggot mob were in the streets and they were burning things down and stuff, there are a slew of politicians that came out vocalizing their support for the demonstrators. Now, the fact checkers, of course, will say that these remarks were out of context. There's not much out of context about, I don't understand why there aren't uprisings in the streets, Miss Pelosi. I don't understand why there aren't uprisings in the streets. Maybe there will be. There's no context dealing with Kamala Harris saying that, yes, it is a movement and these demonstrations will continue and they should continue and they will continue past Election Day. They didn't. um, Especially when you've got her money and putting together foundations to bail these maggots out of jail. There's no context to be had there, in spite of what the fact checkers may tell you. And, Glenn Greenwald had an interesting little take on fact checkers, and you're free to read that at your own leisure. It's a huge fucking fraud. They are basically propaganda sifters and spin doctors for the fucking regime. And as soon as Greenwald pointed this out, well, the fact checkers got on him. Funny how this works. It's Orwellian as fuck, people. It's Orwellian as fuck. And we all see it. We all see it. There's nothing I'm telling you here that you don't already know, or at least on some level aren't tangentially aware of. But again, getting back to the speech issue, Pelosi said what she said. Pelosi said what she said. I don't know why there aren't uprisings. Maybe there will be. Harris said what she said. This is a movement. They won't stop. They shouldn't stop. What was it? Ayanna Pressley, the fucking Ringo of the squad, with her bald ass head. There should be unrest in the streets for as long as there is unrest in our lives. Were they intending to encourage and incite? Was that their intent? In my opinion, clearly it was. Having said that, it is a dangerous, slippery slope. I would never suggest that a government act against people spewing even that sort of fiery, violent, dangerous rhetoric. Because a government cannot be trusted with that kind of power. Do you understand that? Do you understand where I'm coming from? They will demand that Trump be indicted for saying that we should peacefully but firmly demonstrate. That to them is incitement. Fact checkers be damned, all this stuff. That's all we've heard about was January 6th. And they used it to great effect in this election. Not in the way that you suppose. I'm going down side streets here. Bottom line, speech is speech. Violence is violence. You can judge intent, and you should, on a personal level, make a moral decision about someone's intent. When Presley said what she said, she fully intended to encourage people to set shit on fire, burn down cities, tear down statues. When Kamala Harris said what she said, that was completely her intent. Fact checks be damned. Backed up by the fact that her actions reflected that. She put together a foundation to bail these maggots out of jail, including violent felons, including people setting fires. Billions of dollars in damage. It went on for months. Federal buildings all over the country were attacked, up to and including the White House. They burned down a church across the street from the White House, burned down the Secret Service guard shack, and tried to breach the fence at the White House, necessitating Trump to have to retreat into his bunker, not because he would have done that on his own fucking volition, but because the Secret Service went, dude, you're going. Get your orange ass into the bunker. They're about to light this place up. And the whole time, Presley, Pelosi, Harris, Biden, all of them egged it on. They egged it on. But I am still not prepared to say that they need to be prosecuted for words. I can't make that leap, because when you give a government that kind of power, it will inevitably swing back and be used against you. And we can see those things going on right now in real fucking time. A weaponized Department of Justice prosecuting people for speech. angry parents at school board meetings, pro-life demonstrators who have done nothing violent. They haven't bombed clinics, they haven't physically assaulted anyone, but because they stand on the sidewalk and break a technicality in federal statutes that will ultimately be held unconstitutional, they are showing up at people's doors to criminalize their free expression, to put them in camps, to parade them out in Stalin-esque show trials. I am not prepared to hand the government that kind of power. They have seized it on their own fucking volition because that is the nature of leftists. It's what they do. It's their stock and trade. Pol Pot, Mao, Stalin, every leftist authoritarian. But freedom of speech and freedom of association are not fucking negotiable. They're not. Not on planet Bart, motherfucker. I promise you, Sparky, you come for anyone's freedom of speech. What is the example that I always give? Khalid Muhammad. You guys remember Khalid Muhammad? We kill the white man. We kill the men. We kill the women. We kill the crazy. We kill the faggots. We kill the lesbians. And you fucking bury them in the ground and dig them up and kill them a goddamn again because they didn't die hard enough. You can't buy that kind of hate. That sort of hate is as pure as Christ's love. And even though what he's calling for is the outright extermination of my entire fucking bloodline, it is words. And the fact that he is allowed to say such a thing without a government secreting him away to an internment camp reminds me that we still live in a free fucking society. Chomsky, who is losing his mind here in his final years, even specified that if you do not stand for freedom of speech for people with whom you disagree, then you don't stand for it at all. I'm not going to play the tit for tat game. Well, it's incitement when you do it, but it's just talk when we do it. I'm not going to play that game. Yes, you were fucking inciting. Yes, you intended to incite people, but ultimately what you said was just words, and those words did not cross the legal threshold for incitement. One could, notice that I didn't say I'm saying, one could hypothetically say politician X needs to die brutally. Politician X needs to be duct taped to a fence post and gang raped by a pack of rabid Dobermans, right? That's protected speech. We'll see how YouTube feels about that here in a minute. But in my opinion, one could say that and it would be protected speech. Where you cross the line into incitement is where you call up your buddy John who breeds Doberman. No, I'm sorry, because I actually have a buddy John here and I don't want to fucking pull him into this. You call your buddy Steve who breeds Dobermans and say, Steve, here's the thing, bro. I really think that we need to get together and go kidnap politician X so we can duct tape them to a fence post, and then I'm going to get you to bring your Dobermans over, right? And we're going to like slap some estrus on there to get the hormones flowing, and we're going to let your Dobermans just gang rape this bitch. That is incitement. If one were to say such a thing, that would be incitement. That would be criminal conspiracy. Saying a certain gubernatorial candidate in the northern stretches of the Midwest, as several people did, and the case ultimately fell apart. A bunch of hillbillies talking shit about what they would like to see happen to a certain Midwest governor does not constitute a plot to do those things to that governor. Do you understand that? The FBI understands it now because they brought the case and it was shot down. But we're in a very dangerous time right now because the regime that is in control has weaponized every facet of the government against us, taking it back to the elections. Okay. Shot of my liquid enthusiasm. Downsized the bottle this week. I've still got my battle bottle. I'm on the road. I know you're dying. Where are you, man? Where are you? We'll get to it. The elections. We saw what they were capable of in 2020. Whether or not one chooses to believe that the election results themselves were legitimate, what one cannot state with any degree of honesty is that there were not massive and coordinated attempts to steer the election in a specific direction. That is not open for debate. Whether or not they brought in shitloads of fake ballots, you can debate that all day long. Whether or not they jacked with the counting machines, whether or not they shut down the counts at specific hours and specific locations for specific reasons, you can debate that all day long. What you cannot debate is their intent. Because after they pulled it off, they bragged about it. There was an article in Time magazine. Feel free to Google this. I'm not your fucking guru. Don't take my word for anything. I'm just a crane operator with some opinions, okay? I am just a crane operator with some opinions. But this is an opinion. This is fact. They boasted about it. There was an article in Time magazine a couple of months after the election. That is the thing with hubris. They just can't help themselves. Where they outlined every single thing that they did. Recruiting polling monitors, recruiting big tech, recruiting corporate advertising money and big tech censorship, suppressing stories like the Hunter Biden laptop, getting 51 former intelligence professionals to say that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Where are those 51 people now that it's been proven categorically that everything that they said about the laptop was 100% true? Where are those 51 people? It doesn't matter. There's no prosecutions. Whether or not one chooses to believe that the election was successfully stolen through hanky-pinky with ballot machines, whether, floods of fake ballots, this kind of thing, debate that all day long. Make your case. Make your case for, make your case against. But what one cannot say with any degree of honesty is that the intent was not there. Because they not only admitted, they boasted about it at length, in detail. Okay? You have heard me say this before, and I stand by this sentiment. If you tell me I don't believe the government did X with regard to X on this given X day, or this X incident, we can have that discussion. When you go one step further and say, I do not believe that my government is capable of X under X conditions with regard to X incident, miss me with that shit, please. Because the things of which we are painfully aware that our government is capable, remember what I say, everything's tinfoil hat until it's declassified. And the stuff that is declassified is fucking horrific. Your government, under both Republican and Democratic leadership, deliberately exposed thousands of American citizens to biological pathogens to see how quickly they would spread. They did it in the New York subway. They sprayed mist over San Francisco Bay. This is all declassified. This isn't tinfoil hat stuff. They did it, and people died. They fed oatmeal laced with radioactive isotopes to retarded kids. That's declassified. Fact check me on everything. Every word that I'm saying right here. I not only request, I implore, I demand that you fact check me on this. Google is free, motherfucker. And if Google isn't giving you results because they jack with the algorithm, which they do, go to another search engine. But it's there. They fed oatmeal laced with radioactive isotopes to retarded kids. They brought, as Ryan and I were just discussing with you, they brought scads of fucking Nazi scientists, including convicted war criminals, members of the SS, were brought here under the auspices of Operation Paperclip at the end of the war and put to work for the aerospace industry. Some of the same doctors that did live human experiments in the fucking camps were put to work for the medical industry and set free in exchange for their research, the same way we did with the Japanese doctors at the end of Unit 731. Every one of those doctors was pardoned in exchange for their research. Our government is capable of horrible shit. And if you think a regime is incapable of weaponizing a Justice Department to hold on to power, I will refer you back to J. Edgar Hoover during the COINTELPRO era. Every single one of these leftists who has taken the time to read a book, probably 7 of them, maybe 8, would shriek at the top of their lungs at the wretched excesses of J. Edgar Hoover's FBI during COINTELPRO. And they should. Yeah, Mike, I saw the picture. Good take on that buck, by the way. They should. People like myself who pride themselves on intellectual honesty and ideological consistency rail against the excesses of fucking COINTELPRO, no matter what the intent is. I break no bread with communists. I have a seething, visceral hatred for the radical left. But guess what? The stuff that Hoover's FBI did during COINTELPRO, regardless of their motivation, got people killed. Now, if I am a member of the radical right and I get into a conflict with a member of the radical left, that's between me and them. That's between my clique and their clique. That's between my group, my team, and their team. Government is not even supposed to be an objective arbiter. They're supposed to be an observer on a good day. But the FBI under Hoover during COINTELPRO became an active participant and took measures against the radical left, who, I should reiterate, I have a seething, visceral hatred for. The FBI took it upon themselves to hang snitch jackets on people, to plant informants, to run false flag operations, the same thing you see them doing to so-called right-wing extremists today, the exact same thing. And the left, quite properly, lamented it. They still lament it if you really get them talking about it, but they don't want to talk about it now. Why? Because they are the machine. They are in control. How does this relate to the election? I'm about to tie that in. That weaponized Justice Department under Merrick Garland sent representatives. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Governor Ron DeSantis for having the balls in the spine. Not like there should be any surprise about DeSantis now, for having the balls in the spine to stand up to the Justice Department and said, no, you will not send your election monitors here. The DOJ, you remember early on, one of the first things that the Democrats tried to pass once the Biden regime came into power was H.R. 1, to federalize U.S. elections, to take power away from the states. You're familiar with the Hegelian dialectic. You put these faulty voting machines in all these different districts, and election after election, we have malfeasance, and then you offer the solution. Well, we're the federal government. We'll pass H.R. 1. We'll federalize the election and take power away from the states. It failed. Thank whatever benevolent God you pray to, it failed. But that was the attempt to consolidate power. So when the DOJ sends election monitors to conservative districts, districts that are going to break clearly conservative, and only districts that are going to break clearly conservative, and tries to put election monitors in place, I'm with the DOJ. I'm just making sure that everyone votes correctly. That's not intimidation. Again, as Orwellian as it gets, the reason Garland sent them out there was to prevent voter intimidation by intimidating voters. You see how this works? It's the wordplay, it's the games. And they sent them out. I thank Ron DeSantis for saying no, you will not put them in the state of Florida, because he had the authority to do that. I thank every constitutional sheriff in every single one of those rural red districts that said, take your federal ass out of here. This is an overreach. It was an overreach when George W. Bush did it with the Patriot Act and every other fucking wretched excess that John Ashcroft and his fucking Justice Department and Alberto Gonzales during the second term did. I raged against every bit of that on principle, because that kind of federal overreach can't be fucking tolerated, no matter who's in charge. But again, the left, no consistency. They stood right with me. Hey, Bart, it's good to see you being a free thinker. I lost a friend several months back. Guy that I had known IRL in real life. Dude that I've been friends with all the way back to 1994. And because I'm opposing the same fucking things that I was opposing when the Republicans were in charge, he said he was going to part ways with me. It's sad to see a guy who was formerly a free thinker. Oh, I'm only a free thinker if I think your way. Do you understand the problem with this? How does this tie into the election? Remember what they bragged about in 2020, what they were able to pull off. The media acted as a propaganda wing. Blue states and their governors, blue municipalities, major cities, made sure that ballot counting was a bit fuzzy, that no signatures would be required. They made sure to selectively enforce balloting procedures depending on the district. These are all things that they did and all things that they bragged about. Big tech deliberately censored and deliberately steered people in a certain direction. I can tell you that even post Elon Musk takeover, my Twitter feed in the run up to the midterms, the first tweets in my feed every single morning, and my bro Aaron can bear witness to this. The first tweets in my feed every single morning: Rob Reiner, David Hogg, Tina Kotek, the chick that just stole the governorship for Oregon. Those are the first three. I don't follow any of those people. But the Twitter algorithm said, you follow this person who follows this person who follows this other person. So we think you want to see Rob Reiner. Specifically engineered to push the leftist narrative. And that's fine. It's fine. And Roman, I'm glad that you brought that up. Because yeah, it still needs work and it is getting better. And Elon, look, dude, it's going to take time for Elon to make the changes that he wants to make. In any case, back to the election. They know what they did. They bragged about it. They pulled it off in 2020. What did I say going into these midterms? Are they going to try again? Of course they're going to try again. Are they going to be successful? I have to cop to it and admit when I'm wrong. I did not think they would be as successful. If you guys go back and look, fact check me, what did I say specifically? I don't think it's going to be Hi, Dennis. I'm glad you bounced over, man. Sorry. You'll have to take a look at the replay, man. I had to switch over. I had some technical difficulties on the other one. I said that they would not be effective in any areas that weren't already going to go blue. For instance, every bit of polling data, every bit of voter survey, every bit of political windfall, every bit of anybody paying attention here in the Northwest, in Oregon, Drazen was on her way, well on her way to beating Tina Kotek. Tina Kotek's bringing her maxi pad off the ass end of Kate Brown, who is the worst governor in Oregon's history. But what happened? A little bit of malfeasance. Drazen falls short. Drazen sweeps across all of Oregon except for Multnomah County, places outside of Portland, Eugene. But such massive malfeasance that Kotek carried the governorship. Okay. But Oregon was going to break blue anyway. So what did we really lose there? If anything, we made a powerful showing and we taught them a lesson. In the Washington Senate race, Smiley versus Murray. What did I say last week? I submitted my ballot, but in Washington, it's nearly 100% by mail. Do I have any reason to believe that there was malfeasance? I can't provide any evidence for it, but how would I know? All that I know is that in the run-up, you had Smiley a hell of a lot closer. Some polls had her ahead. But at the very least, it was in spitting distance of Patty Murray. And what happened? What were the final results? I can pull it up for you right here. Senate results. As I said, in Washington, polls going in had Tiffany Smiley neck and neck with Patty Murray. Some polls had her ahead. But the final vote, 57.1% for Patty Murray, 42.9% for Tiffany Smiley. What does that look like to you? Because when you break it down to the map, this is what, and they called the race 90% of precincts reporting, so it's safe. It's safe to say they can call the race, but they won't even call specific counties. God, I wish I could give you this visual here. You zoom in on the map. Around Bellingham, Seattle, Olympia, Patty Murray carried it, clearly. The entire rest of the state, including my hometown of Spokane, came out for Smiley. Take a look at the red versus blue map. It will tell the tale. In the governor's race, Tina Kotek, many polls had her behind Drazen. Let me go back to had her behind Drazen or Drazen again, just like Smiley, within striking distance, within like 0.2 of a percentage point on every fucking poll. And yet, when the final results came in, 90% of Oregon reporting, 47% for Tina Kotek, 43.6%. 4 percentage points for Kathleen Drazen, for Christine Drazen. Betsy Johnson was an independent. If anything, the independent pulled those votes away from Tina Kotek. But there we have it. But what does it matter? Because, as I said, Oregon and Washington were going to fall blue anyway. Just like in Michigan. That was going to fall blue anyway. Whitmer is too fucking entrenched. And I'm about to say something that is going to make a lot of you very fucking unhappy. Tudor Dixon was supported by Donald Trump. It used to be something that would put people over the top. But in case after case after case, and you guys aren't going to like hearing this because I don't like saying it, I've been very clear. I did not support or vote for Donald Trump in 2016. Between 2016 and 2020, he won me over. He made a number of fantastic policy decisions, and he exposed the left for who they are. I thank God that Donald Trump came along. So it pains me to say that by all indications, it is getting to the point where he is a poison pill. His ego, that gargantuan ego that ironically enough sustained him and made him capable of all of the great things that he was able to fucking accomplish, has become his Achilles heel. And while conservatives can and should appreciate everything that he did for the party, making 2016 possible, showing people that when people turn out, what can be done? Insurmountable odds against Queen of the Harpies, and yet he fucking won. Just like the UK, Brexit, insurmountable odds. All the peasants will vote how they're told. What? They didn't vote how they're told? And look at the backlash. Look at what the Dems did in 2020 to make sure that that would never happen again. And in 2022, in the midterms, all of those things were still in play. And yet, in a hell of a lot of places, it just wasn't enough. Are you tracking? Do you feel me, Sparky? Everything that they did, all of the creative steering by big tech, all of the prioritization in the big tech algorithms, all of the massive numbers of mail-in ballots, some of which were suspect, some of which were gained under circumstances that have already been ruled unconstitutional because of modifications of voter laws, things that already look dodgy as fuck. We can call Florida within the first couple of hours, but here we are in Arizona, almost a week later, and still can't come up with a set fucking winner. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Even in Arizona, where they had the full complicity of the media machine, including Fox, calling Arizona for Biden early. And all of the malfeasance that we saw in Maricopa County that we're seeing again. Might not be enough. At the very least, we have squeezed within something to where you can't just say it's election denial. And we're going to go race by race here, at least for the important ones. But these are the cases that I want to make first and foremost. What do we go over in the opener, right? Take it back. We'll get the graphics back up. What do we go over in the opener? Brian Kemp beating Stacey Abrams. This leftist tool, Stacey Abrams, who laments election deniers while she herself maintained up until now that the election 2018 was stolen from her. And of course, the media doing their job, amplifying one while minimizing the other. This is how it works. We understand the power of propaganda. Kemp destroyed her ass. What do we know about Kemp? Trump hated him. Trump hated him. Trump hated him because he wouldn't cooperate. And I want to say this. And again, look, man, you have to speak the truth. No matter how unpleasant it may be, no matter who it's going to piss off. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are Trump diehards, and dude, more power to you. I understand. I understand the man's charisma. I don't diminish or disparage anything that he did for populism, for conservatism, for nationalism, for right-wing conservative fucking causes, for the country. He gave us energy independence for the first time in 50 years. Do you realize that? Everything that is going on right now would not be necessary. We were a net exporter. Do you realize that at one point during his presidency, Iran fired missiles into Saudi oil fields? blew up huge refinery sections. And we didn't have to go to war. We didn't feel it in the fucking product. Why? Because we were energy independent. We were net exporter. You cannot take that shit away from Darth Cheeto. You just can't. But he supported Perdue against Kemp in the Republican primaries because he saw Perdue as being a lot more flexible, shall we say, a lot more of a loyalist. He hated Brian Kemp. He ran Perdue against him. And what happened? Trump getting behind Perdue was a poison pill for Perdue, and Perdue remains unemployed, and Kemp was the man. He took the Republican primary. And he won Georgia without Trump's support. Are you following me? The reason why we have been in the position in the Senate that we have been for the last 2 years is 100% on Donald Trump, period. Because Georgia, and again, there was plenty of malfeasance in Georgia. You can definitely make the case. And I understand why he would be tenacious about that. But there comes a time to put your fucking ego aside, Sparky. Because his mouth yapping in the state of Georgia cost us the Senate in 2020. After he took his lumps, he told people don't bother voting because the system's all rigged, specifically in Georgia. And what happened specifically in Georgia? We lost the Senate. This is what it is to be analytical about somebody's strengths and their weaknesses. This is what it is to take a look at subtleties and nuance and big picture. So we won in Georgia. Raphael Warnock shouldn't even be within striking distance. And here's the thing that you've got to give back to Trump. Herschel Walker, I will say this. You're not going to like it. Herschel Walker is an abject, utter fucking buffoon. Respects to everything he accomplished on the gridiron. He is a horrible candidate of questionable intelligence and non-existent verbosity and articulation. He is a stooge. But because he had Trump's endorsement, and here he is now in the general. And again, there's the take and there's the give with Trump. Trump hated Kemp. Kemp won in spite of him. Trump pushed Perdue over Kemp in the primaries. Kemp won in spite of Trump. Then there's the nuance on the other side. Herschel Walker running against Raphael Warnock. That shouldn't even be close. As much of a disgusting, ridiculous, leftist instrument of fucking lies and deception that Raphael Warnock is. Regime loyalist to the fucking core. By any reasonable measure, he should be winning. Because Herschel Walker is a fucking buffoon. But because Herschel Walker has the Trump endorsement, here he is. Shouldn't have been there in the first place, but wouldn't be there if it hadn't been for Trump. So you can't 100% call him a poison pill, can you? Mehmet Oz running against this salivating retard in fucking Pennsylvania? Okay, that's a bit of a different ballgame. A lot of people say that Mehmet Oz failed because of Trump's endorsement. In that case, I disagree. I think Mehmet Oz wouldn't have been there in the first place if it hadn't been for Trump's endorsement. But again, here's the nuance. It worked in favor for Oz to get him into that position, but Oz is a horrible candidate. Why would you support such a man? Why would you support a fucking Herschel Walker? The fact that you have been a kingmaker for so fucking long doesn't mean that you still have the Midas touch. Mango boy. Much respect for everything that he accomplished. Thank God for him. But we have to seriously re-examine where we go going forward. Because as demonstrated, sure, these people wouldn't have been in the position in the first place. People like Walker, people like Mehmet Oz, they wouldn't have been in the front runner position if it hadn't been for Trump. So yay Trump for putting them out there, but they're horrible candidates. Now, is that all about Pennsylvania? No, that's not the whole picture in Pennsylvania. This salivating retard indeed won the election. But Anthony DeLuca, who died months ago, won on the same ballot by a landslide. So one could make the case that there were an awful lot of straight Democratic ballots. Because look at Fetterman. Look at Fetterman's performance in the debate. It was horrible. Even Mehmet Oz looked like a fucking genius. Well, let's not forget that salivating retard here had his stroke 3 weeks after getting what? But we don't need to talk about that either, do we? The media did a phenomenal job. As a propaganda wing, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They painted Fetterman up as 100% cognitively on board. He just can't form words because of the stroke, but cognitively, he's solid. Sound familiar? Sound vaguely familiar? Like, they might have told us that before? Don't believe your own lying eyes watching this retard stumble around and stammer and be unable to form a complete fucking sentence. Don't believe your own eyes. The glowing box told me that he was 100% on. Propaganda wing, they're doing a great job. Fantastic job. And they've got terrible people at the helm. Karine Jean-Pierre, what the fuck? You want to talk about a diversity hire? Complete incompetence. Telling us with a straight face that it could take weeks to count all the ballots, and this is the way elections are supposed to work. Really? How many of my older folks out there can remember election day being election day? I remember. You went in. You put a paper ballot in. You flipped a lever. You flipped a lever. You flipped a lever. You flipped a lever. They counted the ballot. They ran it through a machine. And it was done. And if there ever needed to be a recount, well, you've got all these fucking receipts. I get a receipt when I buy a pack of fucking smokes, but I've got no paper trail on who's going to lead the fucking nation. So there's a theory in Pennsylvania. You have Trump trying to play kingmaker, backs a horrible candidate, gets him into the position as Republican frontrunner. Hey, great. Good job. Thanks, Donald. But he's still a horrible candidate at the end of the day. You couple a horrible candidate with a propaganda machine and ballot malfeasance, and what do you end up with? A salivating retard from Pennsylvania going to the United States Senate. You run a guy in the Republican primaries, because you think he's going to be a loyalist. You think he's going to bend the knee, and you run him up against the guy that you hated because he didn't play nice in 2020. You cost us a Senate seat, and then you run Perdue against Kemp in the primaries, and guess what? Kemp trounces his ass. And that same Kemp, what was the margin? 2018? What was the margin between the Republican and Stacey Abrams in 2018? What was the margin? So close that for the last 4 years, she's been running around with the help, again, of the propaganda ministry, saying that the election was stolen. She's not an election denier, of course. She's just saying that the election was stolen from her in particular, which you can do if you're a Democrat. Propaganda machine doing its job. Point being, Kemp, without Trump's help, trounced this bitch to where even the propaganda ministry couldn't come up with a way to say that this was fucking stolen. Are you tracking? He did it without Trump's help. What I'm saying is there's a very good chance that in spite of his accomplishments, which I will not deny and I will not minimize, in spite of his importance, being the right man in the right time to expose the left, to rip that fucking mask off of him, he's vulnerable politically. He's not the kingmaker that he once was. And while his importance to the conservative movement cannot be underestimated and should not be, out of respect, if anything else, he might not be the one to lead us going forward. That is a reality that some of you are just going to have to get your heads around. It doesn't make you disloyal. It doesn't make you disrespectful. It means you want to fucking win. Well, what makes you think they can win without it? What makes you think this guy? Do you know what he did in Florida? Look at the margin by which DeSantis won his last election. Razor thin margin. He won by double-digit percentages in Miami-Dade County. Do you know how significant that is? Because the Democrats forgot that the Hispanic vote in Florida is largely made up of Cubans, and Cubans don't dig communism. You tracking? He did something that nobody believed he could do. And yet, this Ron DeSantis would not exist without this Donald Trump. Do you see how it's a bit deeper than just that surface level shit? DeSantis won his last election by a razor thin margin over a crackhead who later was found involved in a gay sex scandal involving, well, crack and gay sex. DeSantis won that election by the narrowest of margins. And in the shadow of Donald Trump, he reinvented himself. The Ron DeSantis that you see now is not the Ron DeSantis that won that last election by the narrowest of margins. That is why the Democrats underestimated him in that race in Florida, because they were still thinking old Ron DeSantis. They were thinking that Ron DeSantis, but even worse, he defied government mandates. He shipped illegals to Martha's Vineyard. He grandstanded. That grandstanding Ron DeSantis would not exist without Donald Trump. He reinvented himself in the Trumpian mold, which is why when they go to make the case, and they will, as I've been predicting since Biden took office, that whoever the Republicans run, the propaganda machines thing will be Trump 2.0. That's what they're going to say about Ron. They're already saying it. He did reinvent himself in the Trumpian mold. He became confrontational. He found his spine. He found his balls. As a result, he did something completely unprecedented in Florida in the midterms. He hammered it home when nobody else thought he could do it. Credit where credit is due. So you would think a guy like this, who was responsible for a guy like this, would be giving a guy like this some fucking credit and saying, hey, man, good job, Ron. We appreciate you. But no, 3 days before the midterms, he copped one of his cute little pet names for DeSantis, Ron DeSanctimonious. 3 days shy of the midterms? What the fuck? When people were still saying that there was a good chance DeSantis could lose, and you, oh Kingmaker, Mango Menace, disparaged the man because you let your ego get the best of you. This is not something that we can condone, let alone endorse going forward. Not if we plan to win, because the margins are too fucking thin. Understand that the victories that we pulled going against the same level of propaganda and malfeasance that cost us dearly in 2020. Every single facet of that was still in effect. And yet, we carried the day largely, not by huge margins. Again, just like 2020, if things had been measured by a true, verifiable, independent means, and not subject to all these emergencies and not subject to big tech propaganda and Ministry of Truth shit, we'd have won by fucking landslide. This time, we won by a narrow margin in spite of all that. And you guys want to get blackpilled and say, well, we didn't get our big wave, so man, it's all over, man. Game over, man. Game over. Get fucking lost. We don't need that energy. We can't afford that energy. Black pill is not something, it's a luxury that we cannot currently fucking afford. DeSantis won big. That's an example for everybody to follow. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for Trump to slag him. It wasn't enough for Trump to slag him. Thank you. Could it be that if candidate recruiting had been on quality rather than celebrity and loyalty, it might have been different? Exactly. Exactly, Chief. You called it 100%. DeSantis was quality. And he proved that quality counts. Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake, was that over celebrity and loyalty? Probably to a much lesser degree. Carrie Lake was a fucking firebrand on her own accord. DeSantis with tits. Nice tits, by the way. Sorry, Carrie, but there it is. It's only about 10 minutes. It's only about 10 minutes from when DeSantis announces he's running until he becomes a racist, child molesting, homophobic Russian asset. It's the only trick they know. No, you're absolutely right on that. We can see that coming. So, Dennis, since we're making that point, that's how the media is going to come after him. Every single thing you say there, he's already an anti-vaxxer, a radical, an extremist. Everything that they're saying, child molesting, homophobic, Russian asset. Yes, they're saying all of those things. He had the balls to take on Disney. He had the balls to take on the teachers' unions. He had the balls to take on Fauci and the fucking CDC. And this is what the right here. Look at that. That is what the propaganda ministry is going to come at him with. It's only about 10 minutes from when he announces until he becomes a racist, child molesting, homophobic Russian asset. It's the only trick they know. So, what do you not need on top of that? Trump coming in and eviscerating the guy politically, coming up with cute little pet names for him. I'm going to say something, and you guys can disagree. I believe in my heart of hearts that in spite of all of Donald Trump's baggage and everything else, I believe that a Trump DeSantis ticket would be fucking unstoppable. We've got a great bench, okay? If you want to look at the baseball analogy, we got a great bench. Trump's been out there like Babe Ruth, overweight, vulgar, and swinging for the fences. I think that's a perfect fucking analogy for Babe Ruth. Trump's been out there like Babe Ruth. And he's hitting the dingers. He hit a lot of fucking dingers, but he's getting up in years now. So you might want to start looking at the bench. We got a great bench. We got Ron DeSantis. We got Kerry Lake, no matter what happens with the malfeasance of the Arizona election, which we're going to still get to. We got a great bench. We got Kristi Noem. We got Kemp in Georgia. Gates. Matt Gates just fucking got reelected. We have got a great bench. So when your heavy hitter is getting a little long in the tooth, you start cultivating your bench. You start putting those players in. You start giving them encouragement. You start giving them time on the fucking field. What you don't do is step up to the plate going, it's my turn at bat. And that guy on the bench, he sucks. He will never be me. He will never put up the numbers that I do. Everyone agrees. You don't do that. Not if you want to win. And we are on razor thin margins right now, Sparky. It is a different fucking ball game. The malfeasance machine is in full effect. The propaganda ministry is in full and over effect. Do you understand that? Bill, I'm glad you fucking brought that up. Santos Gabbard would also be an unstoppable ticket. Let me, one thing at a time, Bill. I will get back to that. I swear to God. In fact, I'm going to leave that up. Let me just leave that up so we don't forget. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that even with all of Trump's vulgarity and all of Trump's baggage, I believe that he and Ron DeSantis would be an unstoppable fucking ticket. If it were up to me and I were running the Republican Party, I would put DeSantis in the POTUS spot and put Trump as VP, because that way, if the Dems take the House back, you can go ahead, impeach me. I dare you. Then you get the orange guy. Trump would never take a VP slot. He's either got to be top dog or nothing. You know what that is? To quote Marcellus Wallace from Pulp Fiction, that's pride fucking with you. Fuck pride. Pride never helps. It only hurts. And it's hurting us really bad right now. Getting back to the bench. Getting back to the bench. We got Tulsi Gabbard on our fucking bench now. You understand that? Now, you can say what you want about her being too cozy with the establishment or too cozy with this organization, that organization. You can definitely make some fucking bones about her previous less than enthusiastic support for the Second Amendment. Believe me, that's on my radar. But I'll say this. Tulsi Gabbard, in 2 minutes and 17 seconds, single-handedly destroyed any hope that Kamala Harris had of being the fucking Democratic nominee. You feel me? If she did nothing but that in her entire fucking political career, she still gets points for balls. 2 minutes and 17 seconds destroyed Kamala Harris on that debate stage. And what was she called? Come on, man. What was she called? She didn't get the full treatment, Dennis. They couldn't call her a racist because she's a woman of color, although they did. Couldn't call her a child molester. Couldn't call her homophobic, but they did call her a Russian asset. No less than Hillary Clinton called her a fucking Russian asset when that happens. Chief, you're right. When it becomes about me instead of the team, the opponent gains another player. And they did. Not only did they gain players, they gained Senate seats. Problem. Do you understand? Fetterman is a salivating retard. If we'd have played even a third string solid candidate against that man, we would be coasting into the Senate right now. Do you understand that? You cannot take away credit for everything that Trump has done. Oh, you're talking about Nikki Haley? Yeah, David, Haley could win, but Haley is deep state. So I dismiss Nikki Haley out of hand. I dismiss her out of hand, which is why I didn't bring her up with regard to the bench. She's deep state, man. 100% deep state. You cannot disparage or minimize the things that Trump has been able to accomplish, but you have to fucking take the good with the bad. You have to maintain your intellectual honesty and your ideological consistency. He floated bad candidates. It cost us Pennsylvania because, again, even a third string bench player would have beaten Fetterman. I stand and I support fracking. Can I stand and I do support fracking? A guy who wants to eliminate fracking, a Biden loyalist that wants to eliminate fossil fuels in an energy state like Pennsylvania. A third string bench player would have beaten him, but no. The Kingmaker put up a fucking celebrity, and how'd that work out? We got to ask the hard questions, people. We got to make the hard fucking calls because going into 2024, we've got a fantastic bench. Hell, our starting lineup is kicking ass and taking names. We got a fantastic bench, and they got what? They got what? Fuck all nothing. Are they going to run Biden for re-election? Are you fucking kidding me? So what do you got to fall back on? Kamala Harris? At least Biden has dementia to explain away his complete lack of fucking his complete lack of perspicacity. Perspicacity is my college word. I got like 3 of those. He at least has the dementia and the strokes to explain that away. Contacting Ozzy to translate for Fetterman. You know, the one thing that Ozzy has in common with Joe Biden is the fact that now Sharon Osbourne and Jill Biden are neck and neck candidates for worst recorded case of elder abuse in human history. How the fuck do you do that? Fetterman's wife, how the fuck do you do that? Could you imagine if I were of a higher station and running for elected office and I have a stroke? You see how articulate I am now, how fiery, how passionate, and I come out of with a droll cowl. I Second Amendment important. Could you imagine Charlie putting me in front of a fucking podium and subjecting me to that kind of well-deserved ridicule? Pity the man, definitely. Sucks that it happened to him. Even if it did happen, coincidentally, 3 weeks after he took the fucking vaccine. Sad that it happened to him. But god damn it. Pity should not earn you a fucking Senate seat. Who did that? Who did that? Who decided to run a celebrity who would bend the knee in a race that we easily could have won? He cost us the Senate in Georgia in 2020. This is a fact. I'm sorry to say that, man, but it's a fact. It sucks that the very person who essentially delivered us I don't want to get biblical here, but god damn it, this just popped into my head. Moses. Couple of you are nodding. You already see where I'm going with this. Moses led his people through the desert and took them to the fucking promised land. But because he tapped the rock twice and doubted God, he was not allowed to go into the promised land. You feel me? Yeah, the Reverend just got biblical on your ass. You could thank whatever benevolent God that you pray to that Trump fucking came along. I'm glad that he was Moses to lead us to the fucking promised land. But he's testing the limits of faith now. Thank you for bringing your people to the promised land. Now let your people go. Yes, that was a mixed metaphor. Okay. All you biblical scholars out there going, oh, no, what actually? Stop. Okay. Just let me take the easy joke. Let me coast. You like that, Bill? Glad. Shit, man. I almost wish I would have waited because that would have been a great closer, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Now you kind of let your people go. I am, that would have been a great closer. Fuck. You guys know I do this on the fly, right? 40 years across a 7-mile desert. Yeah. Well, but you know what, Ryan? The analogy still works. If it took us 40 years across a 7-mile fucking desert, somebody doesn't really have a sense of direction. and so the analogy also applies. Yep. Yeah, where's Dave Chappelle? Give it time. Even Chappelle got sold on Trump. He never admitted it. Well, I mean, he did kind of de facto admit it. Chappelle fucking wound up sold on Trump. You remember when the guy tried to bait him at the fucking thing, the little Q&A? They were like, what are you going to do if Trump gets reelected? And what did Chappelle say? Probably get a major, major, major tax benefit. In any case, you let my people go. I can't do Heston. I can't. Actually, I can do Heston. I can do one Heston. From my cold, dead hands. Get your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty ape. Racist. Anyway, God, fuck, man. Ah! I think you guys derail me on purpose just to see me go off on a fucking tangent. And that's totally okay, man. That's totally okay. In fact, we even got a graphic for it. Here we go. Yep, just going off. Yeah, another little trip down Tangent Drive. You got it. Point being is this. He was the kingmaker. He led his people through the promised land, but now it's time to let your people go. You will always have your place in the history books. You will always have respect. You will always have that fucking legacy. Don't tarnish it by burning the fucking house down on your way out the door. DeSantis demonstrated. DeSantis demonstrated what the fuck he could do. 3 days before and immediately after, Trump ripped him. Ron DeSanctimonious. First of all the fucking nicknames you've ever come up with, No Energy Jeb and fucking, Lion Ted and all that. Dude, of all the fucking shit. Ron DeSanctimonious, bro, come on, you could have done better than that. That's the vibe that I'm going for, Mike. The mighty, mighty stone, and I'm glad you're here. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Cafe Artiste, man. Cafe Artiste, right around the corner from Celtic. That's kind of the vibe that I'm going for, and I'm glad it's delivering. We got a lot more. We got a lot more to cover here. Let me keep moving forward. Let me keep the momentum here. DeSantis demonstrated what he could do. 3 days before the midterm, Trump ripped him with a half-ass attempt at a fucking childish nickname. And then immediately afterwards, What does he tweet on fucking True Social? Is it too soon to point out that the numbers that DeSantis did, I could easily eclipse? Dude, stop. You're fucking with A, our greatest bench player, and B, even assuming you don't relinquish the throne, your absolute best choice for a running mate. And you're shredding him. Why? Why? The fuck do you hope to accomplish with that? It's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing. Kemp showed us the way in Georgia. Trump pushed Purdue to beat Kemp in the primaries, and Purdue fucking lost. Kemp won. Why? Because people hate Trump? Possibly. Could be part of it. Or maybe the fact that he's demonstrated that he will be speaking for himself. Because Kemp is not establishment. Somebody tried to tell me that they're floating DeSantis as a rival to Trump because he's who the establishment wants. DeSantis is fucking establishment. Let me just extinguish that with one fucking word. Fauci. We remember Father Fauci, don't we? Father Fauci of the Church of Fear. I just found a meme that I made of fucking Fauci back at the height of the pandemic. Get rid of that banner real quick. You guys remember that meme? I came out with that at the height of the pandemic. That he could literally be caught on video filleting a bat in the middle of a Wuhan lab, surrounded by Chinese scientists and Pfizer executives waving checkbooks, and the fawning faithful would still admire his bold approach at treatment. You guys can read the meme for your fucking self. It's right there. Did that during the height of the pandemic. And you're going to tell me and I had this discussion with someone who I love very dearly, who's very close to my heart, whose opinion and character I respect and are above reproach. We see the same end goal, but we may be taking different approaches to get there. But I said, and you guys fact check me, you guys hold me to account on this. If you want the one fucking way, if Trump really wants to do this and he really wants to bang heads with DeSantis, you want the one thing that DeSantis has to say in that first debate to end Trump. And I'm not even saying, because I believe that when Trump fast-tracked the vaccines, I believe he felt like he was doing the right thing. I believe he was in an unenviable position that no one would have had a correct fucking answer for. And he had that coupled with the propaganda machine working against him 24/7. There was no right answer. He was going to be crucified no matter what he did or didn't do. So I'm not saying he did it deliberately, but when he fast-tracked those vaccines, he felt like he was doing the right thing. And when he gave Fauci as much stroke as Fauci had on policy to allow him to subtly bend 13 days to slow the spread into the fucking 2-year lockdown that we wound up with, I don't think Trump intended to do that. I don't think that he did. No way did he intend to do that. But if I'm DeSantis, the first thing that I point out in that very first debate, dude, I hope so. Yep. I hope so, Ryan. I hope against all hope. This person who I disagreed with, sidebar, we agreed on that. That what they should do is play up the rivalry in a friendly kind of way and keep it above board. But if Trump really wants to fucking cut heads, if I'm DeSantis, I go into that first debate and I'll be like, hey, You gave us the vaccines and you turned the country over to Fauci. I am the only governor in the United States that had the balls to fight both. He says that in the first debate, and Trump is fucking over. Why do I say that? You guys ever watch Trump rallies? I don't mean like the sound bites that MSNBC does where they pull the little clip to make him sound like the Fuhrer. I mean like watch the whole fucking rally. That man has charisma like no one since Reagan has had on the Republican side of the aisle. I think he outdoes Reagan for straight charisma. That's not easy for me to say. What is the only time you have ever seen him booed at his rallies? Anytime he brings up the vaccine. That is the difference between Republicans and Democrats on the vaccine. What did every fucking Democrat say in the run up to 2020? Now, I'm not taking any vaccine that Trump brought out. I'm not taking any vaccine that Trump supports. But as soon as Biden gets in office, everybody needs to take the vaccine. You take that vaccine. It's the same vaccine, Sparky. But you know what? In the run up, the Republicans said, no, I really don't trust the vaccine. For a respiratory infection with a 99.8% survival rate, I don't trust this fucking vaccine. They got fast tracked. We haven't done enough trials with it. And then after the election, they booed Trump every time he brought up the accomplishment of giving us the vaccine. He is booed at his rallies without exception. DeSantis wants to crush him. That is the way to do it. I pray that it doesn't come to that. Absolutely pray that it doesn't come to that. With regard to what Bill Wade was asking earlier, DeSantis, Tulsi, if it does come to that, that's the backup plan. DeSantis, Tulsi, DeSantis, Nome, DeSantis, Lake, and this is the last one that I need to get into, the Kerry Lake. One more thing about Pennsylvania. Again, they reelected a dead man by a landslide. What that says to me is a fuckload of provisional mail-in absentee ballots, all miraculously voting straight Democratic ticket. You know, like the ones that showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning in November of 2020. You remember the chart, right? Remember the chart? A statistical impossibility. They pulled it off again. They did. If you're asking me my opinion, they pulled it off again. And I believe the fact that they carried a dead guy is indicative of that. A little oopsie, a little giveaway. Oh, look, the salivating retard won by huge margins. Yeah, so did the dead guy. What does that say about you, Sparky? As I said, it's not uncommon for dead Democrats to vote, but it is uncommon. We're in new territory when live Democrats are voting for a dead one. But I want to get into this last one. About Kerry Lake and where that is headed. Remember what I said about the numbers. Remember what I said about the propaganda ministry. And in spite of the propaganda ministry's best efforts, every poll, every indicator going into election day had Kerry Lake neck and neck or ahead. All of them. Hobbs refused to debate Kerry Lake. And even CNN called her out on that. Yeah, CNN. Don Lemon, no less, called her out. Why won't you debate her? She's an election denier. She fucking pushes a big lie. You should pick, it should be easy. You should be able, and Hobbs wouldn't debate her. because she knew that if she had debated her publicly, no amount of malfeasance would have saved her ass. She knew the stroke that Carrie Lake had. She knew that smoke, and she didn't want any fucking of it. So what happened? Very start of election day, Maricopa County, all the red areas, all the voting machines malfunctioning. And they said, hey, since everything was fucked up and we couldn't vote for 2 hours this morning, how about we extend it 2 hours tonight? Since we couldn't vote before work, how about all, because Republicans work. How about since we couldn't vote before work this morning, give us 2 hours so we can vote after work? Nope. Sorry, can't do it at this late hour. Oh, even though you won't be counting the votes for another 6 days, you can't give us 2 hours. You fold over backwards for fucking mail-in provisional ballots, no signature verification, no fucking voter ID. You'll follow when it benefits you. But when you knew which way it was going to go, 2 hours was too much to ask, isn't it? You lie. We see that you lie. It's okay. You continue to lie. Here's what you can't lie about. Katie Hobbs, as Arizona Secretary of State, is responsible for the ballot counting. She's responsible for overseeing the elections. Even Democrats were saying, to avoid the appearance of impropriety, you need to recuse yourself. She refused to debate. She refused to recuse herself. And there is a video. You can find it online. Still frame at the very least from said video with a digital timestamp of Katie Hobbs wandering around inside one of the ballot counting centers in Maricopa County, where all the machines went south. What is the propaganda ministry going to have to say about this? Oh, it's just more of the big lie, more election denial because Republicans can't handle it when they lose. Dude, look, you can say, as we said before, I don't believe that this happened under this set of circumstances and A plus B did not equal C. You can say that. What you cannot say is only a fool would think that there was malfeasance here. A fool or someone with working eyes and 2 brain cells to rub together. You can say that you don't believe there was malfeasance. What you cannot say is that there wasn't the appearance of impropriety. Joey, I see you over there, sultan of sarcasm. Totally photoshopped. You can't say that there wasn't at least the appearance of impropriety here. And it will wind up in court. When you do the Google search, Carrie Lake, Katie Hobbs, one of the first things that will come up is Time Magazine, why Arizona governor's race may end up in a courtroom. Keep in mind, it was only a week ago that Carrie Lake, Time Magazine was saying, Carrie Lake leads united GOP slate, unlike Democrats. And then that turned into Carrie Lake raises unfounded doubts about electoral results. Unfounded? Unfounded. You've got her opponent walking around in ballot counting centers. You've got machines in Republican districts that are malfunctioning for 2 hours and you will not extend the tabulation. Unfounded doubts. No. Carrie Lake raises doubts. You don't get to use the word unfounded. I'm looking at the chart. Currently in Arizona, 93% of the precincts reporting. 93% of the precincts reporting. They have Katie Hobbs at 50.5%, Carrie Lake at 49.5%. The vote count difference is between 1,211,000 and 1,185,000. Well within the margin of error. And with all the things that happened, bet your ass it's going to wind up in a courtroom. What will the propaganda ministry do? They will do what they always do. They're election deniers. It only works for them. They win. Really? Stacey Abrams? Really? Really, Hillary Clinton? Oh, you only believe the election's legitimate if you win. Really, Hillary Clinton? Really, Stacey Abrams? The propaganda machine is going to do what it's going to do. I can tell you where it stands right now in the U.S. Senate as far as confirmed seats. Confirmed seats. The Democrats have 48 confirmed. The GOP has 48 confirmed. According to Google and CNN's updated chart, the one race that they won't call for a Senate seat is in Alaska. If Republicans win that Senate seat in Alaska, we'll have 49. Here's the kicker. They refuse to call the result, but both candidates are Republicans. So we now have 49. It's going to come down to Georgia. They're calling Nevada, right? They are calling Nevada. But again, it's one of those things where it was too close to call. Laxalt was ahead. And then as it drug on and it drug on and it drug on, oh, look, big stash of ballots, all of which carried for his opponent, his Democratic opponent. Why is it that every race, if we're going to talk about viability of denial, why is it that every race that gets called on time goes Republican, and every single race that gets called after Election Day goes Democrat? Again, speculating, just asking questions that you're not allowed to ask. But if you can, well, it's because, the ballots and, we've already been over it. Well, they don't count the mail-in ballot. No, that's not true. Some states, they count them at the same time. Some states, they count them earlier. We know what's happening. But in Nevada, literally less than 6,000 votes separate the two candidates, and they're calling it for the Dems. We are neck and neck in the Senate. If we can break even, well, then we haven't really lost anything. Because thanks to Donald Trump in Georgia in 2020, we wound up with a 50-50 Senate with Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote. That is Trump's fault. I'm sorry, but there it is. In the House, we need 218 seats for a majority. We have 212. The Dems have 203. They have lost 8 seats. We have picked up 7. And if you look at the map, we're clearly going to take the House. CNN is falling all over themselves and trying to figure out, MSNBC too, falling all over themselves, trying to figure out a way to call the House for the Democrats. We take the House. Senate is going to come down to Georgia again, where we have Raphael Warnock, a complete stooge, running against Herschel Walker, an inarticulate, stuttering buffoon with a questionable family history and a fuck ton of hypocrisy. Why is it Herschel Walker instead of somebody else who would have been a better candidate? I'll give you one hint. He's orange. These are bad calls. And if we do not hold them to account, that behavior is going to repeat. I would like to believe that Kari Lake will be vindicated in Arizona. If the past is any indication, she will not. The courts will refuse to hear it. All this thing about, the big lie, Trump's big lie about the stolen election, and totally debunked in the courts. Factually, that is not true. The courts just refuse to hear it. Many of those courts, they said, because you don't have standing. And it's wild how that double standard works, because you can't call, hey, these laws are fucked up. You change the law, you can't do that. Well, we haven't had the election yet, so you've got no standing. And then after the election, you say, hey, man, they changed these laws. Well, the time to say something about that was before the election. This is how it works. This is how it works, and that's the extent of it. We will take the House. Oh, Palin in Alaska. You see, and there's another one where celebrity just doesn't fucking hold. I'll let G Dub field this because he's way better equipped. But in Alaska, it should have been a no-brainer for fucking Palin to win. But that celebrity shit doesn't carry the day anymore. She may still win. Doubt it. The way you win is with a united front. And the way you present a united front is not with your big home run hitter slagging your top fucking bench players because he wants to stay in his fucking top hitter slot. That's not the way you win. And there is too much on the fucking line. These people are insane. These people are fucking lunatics. If they had this much more political stroke during the pandemic, we would all be dead or in fucking gulags right now. Do you understand that? They call us extremists. When people tell you who they are and how they feel about you, believe them. When they wished death and poverty and prison and for our children to be taken away during the pandemic, that's who they are. When they wish FBI intrusion into our lives and DOJ surveillance of our activities and big tech and government, in fact, to come in and silence our opinions when we disagree with them, that's who they are. And the only thing stopping them right now are the 4 boxes that we discussed last week. I would desperately like to keep it at the ballot box. Those of you out there thumping your chest, I'm going to beat this one to death. You've heard this out of me before. You guys thumping your chest. Oh, I can't wait for the fucking fight. If you can't tell me what an abdominal gunshot smells like, you need to take your ass back to the kids' table and sit the fuck down. We can still win this thing. We will ultimately win. It's just a matter of by which measure. I refuse to get black-pilled. Refuse to get black-pilled. This should have been, by any reasonable stretch, an overwhelming landslide across the fucking board. We have 40-year high inflation. We have a border that's out of control. We have an addled cadaver walking around the Oval Office, spinning bad policy after bad policy after bad policy. Crime is completely out of hand. On his best day, his approval rating runs 40%. Most of the time, it's in the low 30s. People can't afford basic fucking necessities. And our foreign policy, because of Ukraine, who is laundering money for the Biden family, and I will state that as a fact, you're free to disagree, but you're an idiot. We run the risk of nuclear fucking war. And with all of these things, we barely take the House and break even in the Senate. How? Because look at what we are up against on the other side. This is not a reflection of the national will. This is a reflection of the strengths of the two machines. These diametrically opposed forces On the one hand, the regime, the propaganda ministry, the manipulation of big tech, the weaponization of the Justice Department, nonstop propaganda, malfeasance, fraud, all of these things against the overwhelming and undeniable will of the people. That will wasn't as well organized in 2020. We rested on our haunches. We gave in to hubris. We thought we had it in the bag. We were not counting on the force coming from the fucking regime. We were not counting on the lengths to which the deep state would go to protect itself. And we got taught a very hard fucking lesson. They tried to use the same mechanisms, and it wasn't enough. Do you understand me? I was wrong about the effectiveness overall. I was absolutely wrong about that, and I'll own it. I expected red wave. But I was right in my assessment that the only places that fell to blue, except for Arizona, places that were going to go blue anyway. Washington, Oregon, Wisconsin, Michigan. Look at who they ran against that cunt Whitmer in Michigan. Tudor Dixon, they ran her against Whitmer. Whose endorsement did she have? Whitmer. Think about that. The worst example of medical tyranny of all of the governors during the COVID crisis, with the possible exception of Gavin Newsom, who they will also run 2024. They have nobody else. Worse than Inslee, definitely. She should have been an easy win. You're telling me that Michiganders want to revisit those fucking lockdowns? Want to revisit out of control fucking crime rates? No. Combination of two things. One, Trump's endorsement, and two, the power of that propaganda and the fraud and malfeasance machine. These are the things that we're up against. We have to acknowledge that. Yeah? Did you, George? A lot of people said that it wouldn't. I was under the impression that it would, and I'll own it. I was incorrect in that assessment. But I won't go completely the other side and become black-pilled. Oh my God, it's all over. Our best days are behind us. Probably just fall off again anyway. I'm not that guy. We will hold the House, which we did not previously. It will be a break even. It'll be a push in the Senate, which is exactly where we are right now. And going into the final stretch of 2024, if we can keep a certain egomaniac's fucking mouth shut, focus on cultivating our bench team, we can still win this thing at the ballot box so it won't have to go to the cartridge box. That's my analysis. Remains to be seen exactly how that's going to play out. Here's what to expect going forward. Because we will have the House and they will have a push in the Senate, you can expect, and this is why, looking forward, 2024, they are going to undermine themselves. They are going to double down because they were not swept. They will take an eked out victory as a public mandate. Biden's already saying the overwhelming majority of the American people support my economic agenda. Literally nothing could be further from the truth, as reflected in the polls, as reflected in the ballots. But they will take it as a mandate. And when they cannot get their way through the House and the Senate, you will see him doubling down on executive orders. He will throw out EO after EO after EO, knowing full well that the courts will not uphold them, just to throw interference. He will act like a fucking tyrant, more so than usual. Don't give in. Let them undo themselves. Stay on message. Shut up and win. But definitely get your house in order, because as they are doubling down on the executive orders, they will also be doubling down on what clearly was not an effective message. Democracy will die if we allow people to vote for other people. The American people aren't buying it. They're not. The election, the midterms, certainly didn't reflect that. No indication whatsoever. We still hold the true will of the people, and we still hold the power of that fourth box. We need to make better exercise of that third box so that it will not come to the fourth. Expect more authoritarian behavior from that side. They will take the fact that they weren't thoroughly trounced as a mandate. They always do. Classic overreach. Some mental dysfunction with that team. I will continue to push. As Bongino says, I am long on America. We have been through far worse. This will not be the end of us. I refuse to believe that it is. In the very case, I will refer you, since we use Jordan Peterson in the opener, I'll refer you to another one of his rules for life, and that is clean up your fucking room. Peterson doesn't use the word fuck. It's me. Clean up your fucking room. I'm going to tell you a little something, a little positive, upbeat note. You guys are wondering about these new gigs that I'm in. I'm starting a new gig. I've been hired on as a crane operator here in a remote section of Idaho, southern Idaho, that will remain unnamed. I will not name the employer. I will not name anybody involved, because you never know what people, I mean, fucking dox me if you want. In any case, I will be working on a, oddly enough, sustainable energy project. It is a methane digester project where they are going to basically recycle the gas from all this cow shit. Instead of letting it become a greenhouse gas, they're going to put it in digesters and they're going to use it to fuel generators. And I think it's energy taken from bullshit. I think a Democrat came up with it. Anyway, that's what I'm working on. I've been hired on as a crane operator out here. This would be an appropriate time to thank Brother Ryan once again for setting me on this journey. I'd also like to thank another gentleman, but I'm not going to name him without his permission. He's a friend of mine that I worked with and went to crane school with. And he opened the door here at this specific site for me. I will eventually name him if I have his permission, but I don't ever want to take the risk of getting somebody else doxxed. So I don't mention his name, not out of, not because of lack of respect. I don't want to get the guy in trouble. But this little town in Idaho, man, this is going to be home for the next several months, at least through March, and possibly as late as May. And I'm here and I'm in the paradise that is the Northwest. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and life is good. And so, yes, this is the new spot. I haven't had a chance to set up a proper banner or anything behind me. It's just a room, man. But at the end of the day, it's like I always tell you guys, I'm a crane operator, man, just a crane operator with some opinions. So that's what's going on Planet Bart. Dude, I cannot believe you pulled the fucking, oh my God, you pulled Thunderdome right out of your ass. God damn it, Joey. That's fucking brilliant, man. I love it. Not shit energy. Yes. Dude, that's fucking awesome. I'm gonna put fucking Beyond Thunderdome stuff, everything. I'm gonna get a little stuff thing to put on my back, and I'm gonna walk into the job site as Master Blaster, the big fucking helmet. Anyway, not Chet Energy, who run Bartertown, because you can't have Bartertown without Bart. I'm here all week, tip your bartender waitress. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Good news, new digs. In fact, as soon as I get off here, I gotta go back and finish my OSHA 10 stuff online and get busy with that. But I wasn't gonna let that interrupt the sermon. The three things that I need anywhere that I land in the Northwest, I gotta have three things. I gotta find a coffee place, I gotta find a teriyaki place, and I gotta find a gym. So I found my coffee place and my teriyaki place, and just today I found my gym, and we're going to get that all situated, and we're going to be rolling forward. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a good little stretch here. Again, getting away from everything, being able to focus on just work and train, wash, rinse, repeat. My head is going to be in a much better space, and I'm going into this one with a brand new hip. So you don't have the grinding pain all the time, which is fucking wonderful. And so I'm really digging it. So that's what's going on Planet Bart. That was some good news because I know you guys have been wondering. And as I get off here, I want to talk about beginnings and endings. That was a beginning. This is a new beginning phase of my life. With regard to the sermon, particularly the Facebook presentation part of the sermon. I've alluded to it over the past couple of sermons. On October the 19th, literally within minutes of each of it, all three of my non-personal pages were hijacked. All three, literally within minutes of each other. Primal Iron Strength Training, which was on Facebook. If you look it up right now, you will find entries that refer to it, but there is no highlight and there is no link to the page. Survival Defense Systems, Primal Iron Strength Training, both of those. You will find references to them in my posts, but there is no highlight because those pages no longer exist. The names were changed to Meta Business something manager, right? They literally changed the name of both of those pages to the same Meta something or other, and then they vanished. One of my former employment listings was Primal Iron Strength Training, strength coach at Primal Iron Strength Training. Suddenly, that listing went to strength coach at Meta Business Manager, whatever. I've sent, at this point, a dozen emails to Facebook customer support. I've sent dozens, plural, of memos, literally multiples a day, to customer service at Facebook, to reporting pages at Facebook, to everything. And since October the 19th, when this happened, we are coming up on a month. We're 3 weeks right now, coming up on a month. I have not received a single response. Primal Iron Strength Training and Survival Defense System Spokane. Years of memories, years of classes, years of photographs and videos and memories made and times with friends evaporated at the drop of a hat. Those two pages did not have a single community standards violation against them. Either one. The Reverend Bart page is still up. I no longer have control of it. There has not been a single post there since October the 19th because Bart Stewart, who is the only admin, has been in Facebook jail. They will try to say that it was an outside party that hijacked these pages. Why would they do that and then get rid of those pages? Why would they do that if I was in Facebook jail and unable to use those pages anyway? And why did two of them disappear and the one that remains is the only one that had all of the community standards violations against it? It exists as a page, but I no longer have control of it. I gave my boy Moses a call over in Montana. I said, hey, man, see if you can post thing to the Reverend. He said, no, he can't. As an outsider, you know how he used to post, my updates whenever I was in jail, how he would post it to the Reverend Bart page. He can't post to the Reverend Bart page anymore. Those two pages are gone. Survival Defense Systems, Spokane, and Primal Iron Strength Training. They're gone, along with every memory that I made with every person who went into either one of those pages. Gone, vanished, stolen from me by the Zuckerberg mob. They can say whatever they want. It was not an outside party. And I told you guys probably about a month ago, I said, coming up on it, they will do something. They're going to do something to yank that Reverend Bart page out from under me. They didn't do that. Reverend Bart page is still there. I just don't have control of it. So that's where we're at. In all likelihood, the Reverend Bart fan page will disappear. I knew that was going to be coming. That's why I dispatched Dennis to download every one of the old sermons that he could from the Reverend Bart fan page, and hopefully that project is either finished or nearing completion because it's going to go. Yep, right, Mike. Thank you. I knew I wasn't insane. I called it a month ago. I knew what they were going to do. The Reverend Bart fan page, if they don't disappear it, I am probably going to shut it down on my own. That doesn't mean that I am shutting up. That doesn't mean that I'm going away. That doesn't mean that I am letting them win. I simply will not fight their fight on their terms and let them pull their little 7-year-old nonsense. Nah, 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 we're in control. I'm not playing that shit anymore. I'm not. Too old. There are other platforms. Now that Elon has taken over Twitter, I will be more active there. Instagram, I will continue to be active there until they finally shut me down over there. I am on Truth Social now. Reverend Bart at Truth Social. If you're not a member over there yet, you should be. Isn't that the Trump site? Yes, it's the fucking Trump site. I'm also on Rumble. That's the Bongino site. And on BitChute, which you probably never heard of or maybe have. I am going to places where they actually will allow open and honest dialogue. Best analogy I could give you is this. I've got an outstanding striking game. Muay Thai was my first art. I'm short, I'm compact, punching power like a fucking freight train. I have a low center of gravity. I will knock you the fuck out. So imagine me taking an MMA fight with someone who is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who is fighting in their hometown in the arena filled with their fucking fans and saying, Bart, you're going to take this fight, only you can't throw power punches. You can throw jabs and you can throw teep kicks, but you can't throw your round kicks and you can't throw your hooks. What kind of fucking fool would I be to take a fight like that? I don't care what the payday is. Nope. The truth of the matter is there are two factors. One, I don't have the patience for it anymore. But second, and this is more important, I felt convicted in my heart. I started looking at doing this tit for tat thing. And I realized that by engaging these people, I was violating one of my own prime directives. Instead of staying on signal, I was allowing this I was allowing the politics to draw me into being part of the noise. And this has worked across not just the tit for tat that I'm having with the Zuckerberg mob right now, but on a personal fucking level. It is pulling me into the world of being the noise. And I have no intention of being the noise. I would pull the plug on this whole fucking sermon if I thought that I was incapable of bringing any signal to the noise. I've had a lot of time. What is the channel on Rumble? Should be Reverend Bart. Should just be Reverend Bart. Let me double check that for you real quick. Rumble. Well, I enter Reverend Bart Rumble and it pulls up a bunch of Simpson stuff. Well, that's probably the Google algorithm there. No. Here we go. Yes. Yep, Rumble. Reverend Bart. REVEREND space BART. Reverend Bart on Rumble. Reverend Bart. That's where I'm at. Since you asked, and I probably should start doing that because like all of the replays of all of the sermons are over on Rumble, at least dating back as far as when I started using StreamYard to go on multiple platforms. So you can find me over there, Reverend Bart on Rumble. But beyond that, guys, going forward, I'm going a different direction with the sermon. The one thing that we have control over is ourselves. Any of the great Stoic philosophers will tell you that it's not in what is going on around you. It is in your perception of it and your reaction to it. I have allowed this shit to get under my skin. I have allowed this shit to make me lose focus. And I don't want to live like that. Not only do I not want to live like that, but I don't want to be an influence to you guys who see enough in me to befriend me, to trust me, to sit with my fat, toothless, crippled ass for 2+ hours every fucking Sunday and listen to me rant and rave, to be that kind of example. I feel like I strayed from my own path a little bit, and I'm going to be reining that in. We will still be discussing political shit. We will still be discussing, we will still be getting into social commentary. We will still be looking at the big picture of how the things going on in the world affect us. But the direction I want to head in now is enough engaging with these motherfuckers and letting them get under your skin. I want us to focus on us. The things that we can directly fucking affect. The things that our voice can affect. And sometimes that will be political. But it can be a political comment. You can get the message out without becoming a part of the machine. You can be that signal to break through the noise instead of the signal that gets caught up in the noise. You feel me? Mike, motherfucker. I feel like it could be, and I should be taking this in a much more positive direction. And I feel like that negative energy is not just manifested itself in my own fucking life in ways that I'm not happy about, but it's reflecting in my public persona. And when it reflects in my public persona, that means I am shedding that skin on you because you guys trust me enough. You guys trust me enough to be here and to listen to what I have to say. And I will not be the noise. That's the strength of the fucking directive. So expect to see a little bit different path coming up in the next few weeks. A lot more reinforcement of the things that we can and should be doing to improve ourselves. We will acknowledge the things that are going on in the world, but I'm not going to fixate on this shit anymore. I'm going to break it down to brass tacks. There's going to be a lot more constructive analysis of how to clean up our own rooms, like Dr. Peterson is saying. I want to be a source of strength for you guys, just like I want you guys to be sources of strength for each other. I'm trying to build like minds and kindred spirits here in a community. I don't want to be just another fucking old man, screaming at the fucking cloud. I cannot, will not, would be foolish to ignore all of these outside factors. But just like in the early days when I became hyper focused on the pandemic and everything that was going on, and this thing was basically the fucking COVID cast, there's more to me than that. You guys have seen that. You guys that have stuck with me over the years, thankfully, and entrusted me, you've seen that there's more to me than that. Well, you know what? There's more to me than politics and the way the world is fucking headed. Because the bottom line is this: going forward, it's going to have to be different for one reason and one reason only, and that is this: the world can be as fucked up as it ever is. Same fucked up direction it's always been headed. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Your world only has to be as fucked up as you allow it to be. So I will try desperately to strike a balance between acknowledging what's going on in the world, seeing what I can bring to build some positive strength and affirmation to your world. Because at the end of the day, we come in alone. We go out alone. And the external attachments that we choose to make are a family of our own making while we are here. And as long as we share that time and we're walking that same walk together, I want to be a positive contribution, living up to my own maxim of being the signal and not the noise. And I hope that you guys will keep me on track to that end. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Yes, Dennis, we will still have the rabbit hole. We will still have the rabbit hole, because what would our fucking week be without the goddamn rabbit hole, man? Of course we're going to have the rabbit hole. Yes, dude, the rabbit hole is non-negotiable. Right now, man, Ryan could call me up and tell me to go fuck myself, and I would fake it for the next 6 weeks. Well, Ryan told me, no, man, we got the rabbit hole. I mean, fuck, I think that's probably that's the reason half y'all even show up. No, but the rabbit hole will still be there. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I appreciate you guys being here. Keep showing up for the showing up for the rabbit hole. Look, man, you're still gonna get the same fire and fury. This is Planet Bart, motherfucker. I am the Rev. You guys know this. There will always be that fire. There will always be that passion. There will always be the fury, but it can't get clouded with just that constant fucking muck, man. I got to shake it off. I got to take things in a different fucking direction. So let's see how it works out. I'll run it up the flagpole and I'll see who fucking salutes. I mean, that's it. Roman can tell you this. When I got off of hard drugs 25 years ago, and this is a maxim that has served me well ever since then. When I got off the fucking hard drugs, Roman, what did I say? I said for 6 months, for just fucking 6 months, I'm going to do something different. Why? Because the dope is always going to fucking be there. Right? For 6 months, I'm going to do something different. And if after 6 months, my life is not measurably improved, I can always go back to the dope. Right? Because the dope's always going to be there. Same thing when I started advancing myself at other different levels in my life, trying to better myself in a physical way, trying to better myself in an occupational way. When Ryan opened the door, when Ryan opened the door for this whole crane operator journey, right? If in 6 months my life is not measurably better, I can always go back to being broke and scraping. Right now, I'm going to learn cranes. Let's see how that works out. It served me exceedingly well. That right there, that first piece of advice, things that can, little bardisms like that might help you along. Stuff like that. That's where I want to head, man. That's where I want to take this thing. 15-minute cities plan on next COVID lockdown. Yeah, dude. Yeah, of course. We'll still be looking into all that stuff, man. We'll still be looking into all that stuff. Things that I'll bring up. It's like, hey, man, here's some bullet points, some things we're taking a look at. One thing I wanted to tell you with regard to the election, okay? Every week I'm gonna bring up a Reverend Bart's read of the week or a watch of the week, which I used to do on the fan page, right? Taibbi, of course, getting an inordinate amount of play there, but there was a podcast. Victor Davis Hanson. Let me see if I can find that real quick. If you guys will just be patient with me for a second, I'm going to look that up. But this is something that I want to, something that I listen to that changes, that basically changes my outlook on something. Let me see if I can find that. God damn it. I cannot. It was Victor Davis Hanson. I cannot remember the name of the podcast. I'll have to come back to it next week, man. Victor Davis Hanson. But it was Victor Davis Hanson's analysis. Here we go. Victor Davis Hanson, FBI should be broken up. Primary function shifted to other departments of the federal government. American Thought Leaders. That is the name of the podcast. American Thought Leaders. Victor Davis Hanson. Google Victor Davis Hanson, FBI should be broken up, American Thought Leaders podcast, use any of those terms. But every week I'm going to throw out something like that, something that crossed my thing, maybe a podcast that I listened to, a book that I read, and sing the praises of some people that might be able to take your head in a different direction. You know what I mean? Because getting caught up in all this fucking muck, it's useless, man. It's useless. It's a dead fucking end. It'll bog you down, man. It's like walking through wet fucking sand. Just sucking the boots right off your fucking feet. I want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I never wanted to be that guy. When I see myself, and I don't really think that I have been that guy, but when I see myself edging in that direction, man, it's time for fucking course correction. Simple as that. So, I don't know, man. We're gonna take it a different way, and we'll kind of see where it goes. Meantime, in between time, man, I'm gonna do what we normally do. We're gonna pass that digital collection plate around here, and gonna go out with a little shot of Fortunate Son from Neil Fallon and Clutch. Gonna pass that digital collection plate around. If anything I threw out brought something to you, changed your worldview, something, information that you weren't aware of, you want to throw me a little bit of coin, that's great. I'm on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Facebook Pay, fucking name it. Find me, Reverend Bart, everywhere. So I'd be happy to, if you guys want to throw me a little bit of coin, I'd be more than happy to take it. If you can't, I get it. We are still living in a Biden economy, and not everybody is doing so fucking well, so I get it. But here's what you can do, man. If you got a social media platform, drop the replay on there. Drop a link to something, to bring them to the gospel here, man. All my reverends, rangers, my sinner sisters, my prophets of doom. You guys can just drop the link on your own social media platform. That'd be fantastic. In fact, if you really want to piss them off, drop it on a platform from which I have been essentially banned. I'm looking at you, Zuckerberg. I built you a fucking data center in Oregon, you ingrate fuck. Anyway. But in any case, here's what you can do for me, and this isn't something you can do for me. It's just something you can do for yourself, right? Something we can all do for ourselves that benefits everybody, and that's live by the directives. You guys already know the directives, man. You can recite them by memory, and I was just going over one of them to start off with this new direction we're going to be taking, man, from here on out. They'll try to bury you with the noise. That insignificant shit, that muck sucking the boots off your feet. You got to be the signal that breaks through the noise. They'll try to bury you in the darkness, man. They will try to demoralize you. They will try to dehumanize you. They will try to emasculate you with the fucking darkness. You have got to be that light that breaks through the darkness. But first and foremost, the iron rule, the prime directive. You have got to be that strength in a world full of weakness, because without that strength in that world full of weakness, you won't have the strength to be the signal that breaks through the noise or the light that breaks through the darkness. Strength first and foremost. And remember, kids, violence is golden and immolation is the sincerest form of flattery. I love you guys, man. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate y'all being here. Same time next Sunday, boys and girls. Try out that different direction. See how it works out. Love you, man. I appreciate every one of you. Take care of yourself. See you next weekend. I'm out. Peace. Thanks, guys.